was a long day, from dawn to dusk, absolutely. There was no restrictions in those days on how many hours you worked. You just did what you were told to do, and that was the job. And if you didn't take what you thought was unfair, the injustice of it.
One of the things that's been really fascinating about this project has been revisiting a community history project from 40 years ago. So what the researchers were looking for through this project was to find material that could be used to illustrate the stories and the individual life histories that are part of the oral history transcripts.
I took part in a little bit of research about one of the people whose interview had been recorded back in the 80s, about her memories of the 20s and 30s. I got very interested in the research because I had to look at one particular woman who was born in 1904, same year as my father, and that sparked my interest. I just kept on finding out bits more about her, and then I retraced her steps in the old town, looked up where she lived, the different places, where she played, all of that. In the exhibition, when you're listening, you can hear extracts from the transcripts of these interviews, and I recognised 5 or 6 from her transcript.
My sister Sophie and I make graphic novels, and one of the books that we've made was a graphic novel adaptation of Robert Tressell's The Ragged Trouser Philanthropists. I've come here today to the Tressell's Children exhibition, which has used some of our work from the graphic novel, along with oral histories taken from the library and museum, and some fantastic photographs and artwork that's been provided by local people. It's really interesting. Sophie did an amazing job adapting it, getting all those words, up 255,000 words or something, and reducing it down to work for the graphic novel. So, and then I started drawing it. Every year it only gets more relevant and more impactful because we're living with extreme poverty and extreme richness, and these things are kind of almost back to how they were in 1910, which is shocking, really.
I was commissioned to make several sound pieces, recording extracts of the oral history that had been transcribed and selected by Catherine and some of the researchers, of sounds that gave a kind of sense of place of an era. I think it's a really wonderful way to animate heritage and history, and especially oral history, because that tends to just lie in drawers, in records and archives. People will be much more likely to come and experience this. And if it's not within people's living memory or stories from their relatives, they can get a link back to how life was and give some kind of context for their own lives.
I worked with Mary. We were working together. She was kind of choreographing it. She knew what she needed material-wise, and I was in the studio to record it all, and then we met and kind of compiled the sound collage. So what we were trying to do is have the sound play the role that it can, but to not overpower at the same time, because you're moving through it, you're seeing things, you're hearing things, you're feeling things and smelling things, I guess, and maybe touching stuff. So yeah, we're playing a specific role in the whole thing.
So I was invited to create, as an artist, a piece to go into the show that told something about my family history. The installation ended up as a series of 11 cups that are relative to the period of the ancestor, and I inserted their portrait into the round of the cup as if they're the actual cup of tea. The in-depth research that so many people have enjoyed doing, bringing all of that together with the sound installation as well. This has opened up new doors for me. It's been a real joy to be involved in a really different project, something that I would never have imagined ending up doing.
My position description was exhibition designer, and from my point of view, working with a small team of people who were all giving their utmost to create a show in quite a short space of time. So it really did require very strong communication between the team, so people's expertise is sort of visible in the finished product. So as a craftsperson myself, I tried to emphasize the visible symbols of the skills that people possessed in days gone by and still do that are underrated. So that was sort of the aspect I resonated most with, I guess.
Just how evocative it was of so much that I remember my grandparents talking about things my parents talked about, recognising objects and hearing their voices telling quite similar stories. My grandfather was a railwayman in Scotland, and just talking about pre-National Health Service and just how little safety net there was, and no, I found it really thought-provoking.
Where the first-hand testimonies of what life was like back in the day, you know, and it just demonstrates that Tressell got it absolutely spot on when he's talking about life for most people just before the First World War.
I was increasingly drawn into the stories and cared about the characters who were speaking and was deeply moved by them. And I felt that any thoughts or theories I might have about social justice and poverty was somehow turned into reality. It was an extremely touching, thought-provoking show. Thank you.